Ever feel like your best ideas, those brilliant flashes of insight that solve a nagging problem or spark a new creative project, only seem to arrive when you're completely alone? When you're in the shower, on a long solitary walk, or just staring out the window with a cup of tea? It's not a coincidence. It's a clue to one of the most misunderstood and undervalued sources of power in our modern world. Today, we are diving deep into why stepping away from the noise isn't just a nice break. It is an essential biological necessity for groundbreaking insights and for unlocking your true creative potential. Prepare to learn how to strategically use solitude to supercharge your problem-solving abilities. We live in a world that is fundamentally at war with deep thought. Our modern environment is an always-on culture, a relentless assault on our attention. Think about your typical day. From the moment you wake up, your phone is buzzing with notifications. Your email inbox is a never-ending to-do list dictated by others. Social media feeds offer an infinite scroll of distraction. Even our physical workspaces, with the rise of open-plan offices, are designed for constant collaboration and interruption, not quiet contemplation. We are living in an age of constant connectivity, and it is silently sabotaging our ability to think. In this environment, the idea of solitude can often be misunderstood. We tend to confuse it with a negative state, loneliness. Loneliness is a painful, involuntary feeling of isolation and disconnection. But solitude is something else entirely. Solitude is a voluntary, intentional state of being alone. It is not a punishment, it is a choice. It is not about escaping the world, but about creating the necessary conditions to connect more deeply with yourself. It is a strategic state, a silent catalyst for creativity, clarity, and profound self-discovery. So what is actually happening in your brain when you step away from all the external noise and enter a state of solitude? To understand this, we need to talk about a remarkable neural network that scientists have named the default mode network, or DMN. For a long time, neuroscientists assumed that when we weren't actively focused on a task, our brains were simply at rest. But brain scans revealed something startling. When the brain is not focused on an external, goal-oriented task, a specific, highly active network of brain regions lights up. This is the default mode network. You can think of your brain's focused state, the one you use to answer an email or solve a math problem, as a tight, focused spotlight. It illuminates one thing with great intensity. The default mode network, on the other hand, is like the floodlights of a stadium. It doesn't focus on one thing. It illuminates the entire field of your mind at once. It's the state your brain enters when you're daydreaming, mind-wandering, taking a shower, or on that long, quiet walk. Crucially, the brain's spotlight network, known as the task-positive network, and its floodlight network, the default mode network, are largely antagonistic. When one is highly active, the other is mostly quiet. This is actually the neurological reason why our always-on world is, well, so detrimental to deep thought. The constant stream of external stimuli, the notifications, the emails, the conversations, keeps our brain's spotlight constantly engaged, actively inhibiting the floodlights of the default mode network from turning on. And this is a huge problem, because the default mode network is where the magic happens. Scientific findings have shown that the DMN is the brain's hub for some of our most sophisticated cognitive functions. It is the network responsible for introspection, for thinking about ourselves and others. It's where we retrieve distant, half-forgotten memories and connect them with new information. It's also where we engage in mental time travel, simulating future possibilities and imagining different outcomes. The DMN is actually the brain's master connector. It takes all the disparate ideas, fragments of knowledge, and stored memories in your mind and allows them to mingle, to collide, and to form new, surprising, and insightful connections. This is the neural basis of the aha moment. That sudden flash of insight that seems to come from nowhere. Solitude isn't about emptying your mind. It's really about creating the quiet, undistracted space necessary for your default mode network to finally turn on and get to its brilliant creative work. This is not a new discovery. Throughout history, many of the world's greatest thinkers and creators have instinctively understood the profound power of solitude. They didn't have fMRI scans to show them the default mode network, but they knew through practice, that their biggest breakthroughs were born in moments of quiet contemplation. Consider Isaac Newton. In 1665, the Great Plague swept through London, and Cambridge University shut its doors. Newton, a young student at the time, retreated to his family's farm for over a year of forced solitude. It was during this period of intense, uninterrupted quiet that he had what is now known as his Year of Wonders. Away from the distractions of university life, he laid the foundational groundwork for his theories on calculus, optics, and the law of universal gravitation. His most revolutionary ideas were not born in a bustling lab, but in the quiet of the English countryside. Or think of Albert Einstein. We have the image of him as a brilliant professor, but many of his most important ideas came from his solitary thought experiments. He would spend hours in deep, quiet contemplation, imagining what it would be like to ride on a beam of light. His job as a patent clerk in Bern, Switzerland, was famously undemanding, providing him with vast stretches of quiet time to let his mind wander and engage in the kind of deep, imaginative thinking that would eventually lead to the theory of relativity. His long, solitary walks were a non-negotiable part of his intellectual process. This isn't limited to scientists. The celebrated writer and poet Maya Angelou had a famously strict solitary routine. To write, she would check into a small, Spartan local hotel room every single morning. She would arrive with a legal pad, a dictionary, a Bible, and a deck of cards, and she would write completely alone until the early afternoon. She understood that to access her deepest creative voice, she had to completely remove herself from the distractions and demands of her daily life. For these historical figures, and countless others, solitude was not an accident or a punishment. It was a deliberately cultivated and fiercely protected part of their creative process. They intuitively understood that the signal from their own genius could only be heard when the noise of the world was turned down. So how can we in our noisy 21st century lives begin to cultivate the same kind of creative haven? The goal is not to become a hermit or to abandon our responsibilities. Really, the goal is strategically and intentionally incorporate small, consistent pockets of solitude into our daily and weekly routines. Here are some practical hacks to get you started. Let's begin with small, actionable tips. You can start by scheduling a digital detox. This doesn't have to be a week-long retreat. It can be as simple as declaring 1 hour every evening, say from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m., as a phone-free hour for everyone in your household. Another powerful practice is the silent walk. The next time you go for a walk, just leave your headphones at home. Don't listen to a podcast or music. Just walk and let your mind wander where it will. You can also create a designated quiet space in your home. It could be a single chair in a corner. Make it a rule that this is a no-tech zone, a place where you can go for just a few minutes to sit in silence and disconnect. It can also be helpful to think about different doses of solitude. You can start with a microdose, a 15-minute completely silent coffee break in the middle of your workday without your phone. Then you can move up to a standard dose, a full hour, dedicated to a solitary activity like journaling, meditating, or working on a hobby in a quiet room. And occasionally, you might plan for a macro dose, a half-day solo trip to a park or a museum, or even a weekend retreat by yourself. The most important thing is to start small and build a habit. The temptation is to plan a grand week-long solo vacation that never actually happens. It is far more powerful and sustainable to commit to just 15 minutes of intentional solitude every single day. Like any form of training, consistency is the key. You are not doing nothing during this time. You are actively creating the conditions for your brain to do its most important work. You are building a new habit, the habit of deep thought. It's time to reframe our entire understanding of what it means to be productive. In our culture, productivity is often measured by busyness, by how full our calendars are, by how quickly we respond to emails. But this is a shallow and ultimately unsustainable model. True productivity, the kind that leads to breakthrough ideas and innovative solutions, requires periods of non-busyness. It requires space. It requires quiet. Consistent, intentional solitude is not a luxury. It is a fundamental investment in your own cognitive and creative potential. It is the act of sharpening the saw. It is the time you take to allow your mind to connect the dots, to find the signal in the noise, and to hear the quiet whisper of your own intuition. So here is my challenge to you. Sometime in the next 48 hours, I want you to find and schedule just one 20-minute block of intentional, tech-free solitude. Put it in your calendar as if it were your most important meeting of the day. It could be a silent walk, sitting in a quiet room, or just watching the world go by from a park bench. During that time, don't try to force any ideas. Don't try to be productive. Simply let your mind be. Observe what happens. Observe the thoughts that bubble up when they are finally given the space to do so. This is not about running away from the world. It is about creating the necessary space to find your own unique and brilliant contribution to it. The constant noise of modern life is drowning out our own best ideas. By intentionally carving out these moments of quiet, we are not being unproductive. We are creating the sacred space where our own genius can finally speak. And as you begin this practice, I invite you to share your experiences. What new ideas were sparked by your moments of solitude? How did it feel to disconnect, even for a short time? Let's create a conversation about the profound and transformative power of quiet.